We begin today the Gemara on Daf Lamed Daled Amud Beis, 3 lines up from the bottom of the Yomid. Zeh Oimer. The Gemara before here brought the halacha regarding two people that are arguing about a boat that's floating in the river. Each one claims it's mine. Nobody has any proof whatsoever that it's his. Here the Gemara says the halacha in such a case, basically similar kind of halacha. Zeh Oimer Shalavoisai, V'zeh Oimer Shalavoisai. One comes along and says, this property belongs to my father. And someone else comes and says, this property belongs to my father. None of them have any trace of evidence whatsoever. Just both are claiming this. So what's the halacha? Amar Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman says, the halacha is called the Olam Govar. We paskin that they both, whoever is stronger, and if it fights and gets it, he keeps it. In other words, the point here is that the Bezdin has nothing to do about this. This is the way most Rishonim understand this concept, that because the Bezdin can't look at any evidence, there's nothing to analyze because they have no evidence, it's just their claims. So the Bezdin basically says, go take care of it yourself. We're not getting involved.
Just that's like the boat.
That's the halacha of Kol Dolam Govar. There is though a famous pshat that it says in the Rosh and in other Rishonim as well, that the idea of Kol Dolam Govar is that the person that's the right owner will be Meiser Nefesh more, he'll fight harder to get it. And therefore, the one that's Goiver, it's an indication that it's actually his. Because the other person, the Ganev, is just taking a chance. He's trying his best, his luck. But when the Bezdin says Kol Dolam Govar, he'll just drop out and allow the real owner that's not going to want to give up on it. So that will actually be a raya that it's his. Another thing I think I mentioned yesterday, the Rashbamir says, Kol Dolam Govar doesn't only have to mean physically. Kol Dolam Govar means also with a raya. If whoever will have a better proof that it's his, that's also part of Kol Dolam, not just physically. There's also a famous Machlokes Rishonim regarding Kol Dolam Govar. What happens if one is Goiver? Does this fight continue forever? One person is Goiver and now someone else is Goiver and they can keep on fighting about this? So some Rishonim say, yeah, it goes whoever is Goiver once and then back and forth. And other Rishonim though say that no, Kol Dolam Govar, whoever is Goiver the first time, he's the one that gets the chazaka, and that's what it's mashma also in the Rashbam. Whoever is Goiver the first time, he gets the chazaka on it, and that's it. Your fight doesn't continue forever.
Why don't you say you put it away till Mashiach comes?
Yehei Munach, why should we take it away from them?
So,
why should we take it away? No, Yehei Munach is only said in one very specific case. The Gemara Bava Basra Daf Gimel says Yehei Munach regarding when you have an argument regarding a pekodin that's already being held by somebody. This is something that's just a piece of property here, or a boat that's floating out in the river. There's no reason for us to possess it and to put it away and to hold on to it. There was one opinion before that the Gemara brought that if Bezdin already possessed it, then loy mafkinon, Bezdin will hold on to it because then they have the obligation to give it to the right owner. But here this is something that's just there. It's hefker. Bezdin's not going to possess it and hold on to it. Why is our case, where Rav Nachman is saying the halacha is Kol Dolam Govar, different from the following case of two shtaris that have the exact same date on it? So this is a case where you have two people that are presenting a shtar that says that I bought this property on this date. And the shtar that Reuven has and the shtar that Shimon has the exact same date. And Rashi explains that besides in Yerushalayim, where they would be makpid to write the hour of the day, and therefore the fact that it has the same date is not a problem, because you just have to look at the hour of when the shtar was written to see who got the shtar first. But if you're not living in Yerushalayim and in all other places, there was only a date written on the shtar. So Reuven comes and says, I bought this property today on Chav Gimel Tammuz, and the other person has the same date, Chav Gimel Tammuz. What do you do now? Who does this property belong to? Now, the Rashbam clarifies another point. You should look at who got the shtar first. Who did the seller give the shtar to first? So the Rashbam says it doesn't work that way. Because you got the shtar without any hour written in it, so when does the kinyan of that shtar take effect? Only at the end of the day. That's why he didn't write an hour in the shtar. That's why the minig is that you do not write an hour in the shtar. So that the seller, if he wants, should have the ability to have charata until the end of the day of the sale. He's giving you the shtar before. He could have given you the shtar in the morning, but the sale doesn't take effect until the end of the day. So now you have two people that got the shtar on the same day, and it's not clear what this seller was doing. Why is he giving two people the same field, the shtar, that he's selling them the property? What could be happened is that he meant to sell it to one, and really the first one is the right buyer, and the second one, he was someone that was just nagging him, I want to buy this property, and he just wrote him the shtar just to keep him quiet, and he really meant to sell it to the first guy. But what could have happened was also the opposite. Maybe he meant to sell it to the second person. Elamai, the first person came and chaptarayim from before, but then he had charata. Then he decided, I made a mistake. I really want to sell it to the second guy. And because the day is not over yet, he gave himself time to have charata, as I mentioned, till the end of the day. So maybe he really meant to sell it to the second person. So this case of Shnei Shtaris is a big suffix who he means to sell it to. So what's the halacha here? The Rav says in such a case, because it's a suffix, yachloiku, we divide this property between these two people. Shmuel says, Shude de Daini. What we do is, the Bezdin throws it to the one that they feel is right to give it to. Right, so the Rashbam's pshat is, Shude de Daini means, Bezdin can't prove anything, who's right or who's wrong, but Bezdin has to try to figure out who's right. Meaning Bezdin could look at who was a better friend of the seller, or if he gave it as a gift, to see who would he rather sell it to or give it as a gift to. Bezdin has to use some kind of intuition to see who's right. That's the idea of Shude de Daini. Taisus actually says that Shude de Daini means that Bezdin just gives it to who they seem fit in their eyes to give it to. Since this is a case where there's no evidence, there's no proof, there's no intuition, there's nothing, Bezdin just gives it to who they see fit. That's the concept. We don't know. We have no idea. And Shmuel holds that Shude de Daini is better than dividing it. When you divide it, on one hand, everybody's getting something, but on the other hand, you may be taking away from the right owner half of what's his. Or you're definitely that is taking away from the right owner half of what's his. In the case of Shude de Daini, Bezdin is using their intuition, or just according to Taisus, giving to whoever they wish, but at least the right owner may be getting fully what's his. But so the Gemara's question is that here we see that in a case where it's unclear who this belongs to, the halacha is either yachloiku or Shude de Daini. We don't say kol dalam gova. So why did Rav Nachman say when you have this argument and no one has any proper proof, or no one has any proof at all, the halacha is kol dalam gova?
Why don't they just ask the seller?
No, the seller at this point cannot be trusted for this. After the fact, if the shtar is not in his possession, I don't think the seller is trusted to come and tell us. Well, let's say the seller is not there, you can't ask him. But if I remember correctly, the seller is not even trusted for this.
Is it possible that he sold
After
it
the
twice?
fact, he can come and say whatever story he wants. But we have to know what he was thinking b'shas ma'isa. Did he want to sell it to the first or the second person?
Why does Rav say yachloiku?
Rav holds that yachloiku is a better option. At least the right owner for sure gets half. Shude de Daini is a chesaron because the right owner may end up getting nothing.
Is it possible that the seller had in mind to give both and he made half?
That was l'chatchila what his kavana was. He wrote but since the seller wrote a full shtar saying that I'm selling you the entire property, and then he writes the same kind of thing to the other person, so I don't think that's considered to be an option. Taisus here actually discusses that there is one, there is one shitta that says that the yachloiku of Rav, according to one shitta, is not misafik. It's midim vadai, because of what you said, because we say that the seller's intention was to give half to him and half to him, but not in the pshat of the Gemara here. The Rashbam clearly says that this is a suffix, and that the moiche meant to give it to one, and it's just not clear which one, and therefore we say yachloiku misafik. So that's why there's a stira here from what Rav Nachman said. Rav Nachman is also talking about a case of a suffix. It's not something which is clear. And there he says in a case of a suffix, we say kol dalam govar. And here we're saying in a case of a suffix, we don't just let them fight it out. We get involved. We split it for them. Or we choose who to give it to. Shude de Daini. So what's the difference between these two cases?
It could be that the seller sold it to both of them, and you got money, double money. So then if you do
that could also be. So then he'll have to give back the money. Either way, if he got paid twice, he'll have to give back the money that he got a second time. That's no question about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the Gemara explains the differences as follows. Hasam lekalemekem alada milsa. There, when it comes to the case of these two shtaris that they have, this is something that could never be determined. This is a suffix where no level of proof will help you, because you have two shtaris which have Edom on it, and each one has the ultimate proof that he is the buyer. And so what are you going to do? This is something that will never be determined. So in such a case, we say that you can divide it, or Bezdin chooses who to give it to split it. Should the Daini, Bezdin gives it to one person. The Rashbam Avir explains, even though you can theoretically argue that there is maybe something that could happen that will determine who it belongs to. For example, if you find out regarding these two shtaris that were written on the same date, but if you find out that the seller gave the shtar to one on one date and he gave the shtar to the other on a later date, so then the one that got it on the earlier date, it'll be his. Because the whole discussion here, the whole suffix is because they both got the shtar. Not it was written to them, and also they got the shtar. The mesira of the shtar was on the same day. And as I mentioned before, the kinyan only takes place at the end of the day. So the kinyan for both of them is taking place at the same time at the end of the day. And we don't know what the seller meant. But if it turns out, if we find out later that one got the shtar on an earlier date and one got it on a later date, then that will determine who it belongs to, the one that got it on an earlier date. But the Rashbam says we don't expect at all such a thing to happen. Because both shtaris have the same date written on it. When it was written, they probably both got the shtar from the seller at the same time. And so therefore the Gemara says, this is a situation where we will not find out ever any evidence who it belongs to. So therefore, Bezdin gets involved and either splits it or chooses who to give it to.
But what we learned that what better macha'ah is there that the seller sells it to a different buyer on a later date?
True. Okay, but that doesn't apply here, right? We had that before in the Gemara, but that doesn't apply over here because here, until the end of the day, he gave himself time to retract the sale. The reason why he wrote the date without the hour is because he has time to retract from the sale till the end of the day. Even if he gives it to him right away, he's giving himself time to have charata. But we're not sure though what happened. He may have had charata, or he may have given the shtar to the second person just as a piece of paper. When he wrote that second shtar, it's not clear what he was trying to do. He didn't tear up the previous shtar. He gave a shtar to two people here. So and he never tore up the first shtar. So therefore, it's not clear here what happened. But over here, though, however, regarding the case that Rav Nachman was speaking about, two people coming into Bezdin, each one claiming that it belongs to me, and so none of them had any evidence. Over here, it's very possible that someone's going to bring Eidim. There's something could develop over here. So one of them could bring Eidim, something could happen. So in such a case, why should Bezdin get involved? Bezdin's going to say Achleiku, or Bezdin's going to choose one person and give it to him, and then it's going to turn out that Bezdin was wrong. Why should Bezdin get involved in a way that it'll end up being an embarrassment for Bezdin? So therefore, Bezdin says, you have no proof, none of you have any proof whatsoever, go fight it out yourself. That's why here we say, Kol Dom Gova. Why is this case different? Again, Psak Din of Rav Nachman that says Kol Dom Gova from another din, from a Mishnah. The Mishnah says in Bava Basra, two people, they were switching a cow for a donkey. And V'yolda, and it gave birth at the time, sometime mamish by the time of the sale. And it's not clear what happened. It's not clear when it gave birth. The a person is selling a maid, and V'yolda, and it also gave birth at the time of the sale. One of them comes and says, the seller says that before I sold it, my cow or my maid gave birth, and therefore I'm only selling you the cow. The baby that was born is mine. But the buyer says, you sold me the cow, you sold me the maid, and the baby was born after the acquisition, after the kinyan. And therefore the baby born is mine, is the buyer's. So what do you do in such a case? The Rashbam just points out regarding the way the Mishnah describes it, this is specifically the kinyan of Chalipin, where they're switching the para for the chamayr. Because only then could there be a suffix when exactly it was born. Because when you take the chamayr, automatically the pada belongs to the other person. So it could be you didn't even see, you weren't there, and the pada gives birth, and you didn't see when it happened. But if it would be a kinyan if they would do a kinyan of kesef doesn't work, or meshicha. So meshicha you clearly see if there was before the meshicha or after. So that's why here it says machlef pada. But by meichesh of chasai, that could be even with kesef. Because there is, by metaltlin, there's no kinyan of kesef, but one of the ways to acquire a shifcha is with kesef. Right. But Mitzvah we learned, right. Okay, so now what do we do in such a case? Says the Mishnah there, the halach is yachleiku. That because of the suffix who it belongs to, we split it between them. Right, so this is a case where, when they're arguing, and it's possible that this should be determined later. Maybe Adam will come along and tell us exactly what time the baby was born, and we'll find out who it belongs to. So if we just had the rule that as long as it's a situation that it could be determined later, so the halacha would be called Olam Gavar, so why here does the Mishnah say that the halacha is Yachloiku? Answers the Gemara, there's another point here. In the case of Machlef Para B'Chamayr, each one of them has a connection to this money. The Rashbam's pshat in this is that this is a case where the para belonged to the Meicha first, and then it later belongs to the buyer. They each have a connection to this para that gave birth to this baby. So therefore each one has a valid claim, a valid connection to this para. So in such a case, Bezdin is going to say achloiku, that you get half and you get half, based on that valid connection that each one actually had to it. There's a certain basis for Bezdin saying achloiku. That's over there. But over here, hacha idemar loidemar v'idemar loidemar. Over here, regarding the case of each one is saying that the boat belongs to me or this property belongs to me, and none of them has any proof whatsoever. So we don't see a situation where both of them had some valid connection to it, him before and him after. It's not a case of a sale. So in such a case, one person is the owner. We have no clue who it is. We don't see any connection to anybody actually to this. They're just two random people coming and saying, this boat is mine. So in such a case, the halacha is, let them take care of it themselves. Kol dalam gova. We can't get involved in this. So now the Gemara continues regarding going back to the story of Kol dalam govar. Amri Nerdoi. So Nerdoi said about this that v'im ba echad min hashuk. Now, while the halacha is Kol dalam gova, these two people that claim that it's theirs, and each one can go and grab it. What's if a third person comes along and says, you know what? If they're arguing and each one is claiming it belongs to them, now a third person comes and he just grabs it for himself. Now, this third person that's grabbing it is a ganav, really. He's not grabbing it, claiming that it's his. He's just goes ahead and takes it. We're not going to take it away from him. We don't have the ability, we don't have the koyach to take it away from this third person. Who are we going to take it away from him for? To give it to who? The other two people that are claiming that it's theirs, we also don't know that any of them is the right owner. Maybe those two, it's not theirs either. They claim that it's theirs.
That they should find it out.
They claim that it's theirs, but they have no raya. None of them have any raya whatsoever that it's theirs. So therefore, maybe it doesn't belong not to him and not to him. Not Reuven and Shimon were here. So now the third person that grabbed it, we have no ability to force him to give it back to them. Okay.
Why not let Reuven and Shimon fight it out? Go back to the
Chanami,
original
but
case.
the question is, could Bezdin come and force this third person to give it to give it back to them if we don't even know that Reuven and Shimon, maybe Reuven and Shimon are stam to random people that came and are taking advantage of the fact that this boat is just out there or this field is here empty, and each one comes and claims it's mine. None of them. Maybe those two are really. They came and claimed it's theirs, but we have no reason to. We have no basis to say that it is actually theirs. So Bezdin doesn't take it away from this third person. And Nerdoi, he brought a raya. They brought a raya from what it says in a brayse. The Tani Rabchia taught Gazlan shel Rabim, a person that steals from a Rabbim, from many, Lav Shmei Gazlan. He's not considered to be a Gazlan. And he explained that what Rabchia was talking about was this kind of case when you have Rabbim, when you have two people that claim that something is theirs and none of them have any raya whatsoever as theirs, and the third person comes and takes it. So we have no ability to force the third person to give it to them since they have no basis to say that it's theirs either. This is the Rashbam's pshat in the Gemara. Rashi Omar, however,
like the behavior is worse of this last person.
it is, but on the other hand, the first two people, we have no source to say it's theirs either. Ravashi Omar, Ravashi says, Lo'olam Shmei Gazlan. No, the truth is that this third person here now is a Gazlan. And so he really does have the obligation to return it to those two people that were arguing over it first and claim that it's theirs. This third person is not even claiming that it's his at all. So he is a Gazlan. Amai loy shmei Gazlan. We quoted here Braise. Rab Chia says that when you steal from a rabbi, that you're not a Gazlan. He didn't mean to say in the lenient sense that we can't force you to give it back to one of them. What he meant to say is on the stringent sense. That since there's the mitzvah by a Gazlan that he has to return it, to return it to the right owner, here, since we don't know who the right owner is, he's not going to have the ability to fulfill his mitzvah to return it to the right owner. That's what he meant to say. And in fact, the Rashbam here says, this Braisa Rab Chia wasn't really, when it says Gazlan Shel Rabim, wasn't necessarily talking about our case. It was talking about the case the Rashbam brings is, let's say a person is a store owner and he's using unfair, not honest weights. And all the customers, all the time, he stole from so many people and he doesn't know who to return it to. On that he said, Gazlan Shel Rabim, you're a storekeeper and you steal from so many people, how are you going to return now the Gzela? Same thing over here. Of course you have to return it to them. Adarabba, what he was saying was, you won't be able to return it because you don't know who's the right owner. And the mitzvah is to give it to the right person. This is Rashbam says it's similar to what the Gemara said in Daf Lamed Dalet, that once Bezdin grabs hold of something, now, according to one opinion, Bezdin can't just release it. Bezdin is going to have to find the right owner to give it to. Same thing over here. The Gazlan has to find the right person to give it to, and he can't either because we don't know who it belongs to. Gemara goes back, finally, comes back to the Mishnah in the beginning of the Peirik, discussing the halacha of the chazakeh, how you establish a presumptive status of ownership in a field. That's by cheskasan, shalashanim, miyayim liyayim v'chulu. When you are there 3 years, day to day. Amar Rabba, so Rabba says there are exceptions to this. Not always do you have to wait 3 years to establish a chazaka. If this ma'arer, if someone else is challenging your ownership, and he was the owner before, he has a raya that he was the marakama, but he himself, you have edim that he helped you, he loaded onto your shoulders a basket of fruits to help you out with your eating in his property that he claimed now is his, and you're saying, no, I bought it from you, so then it's immediately a chazaka. The fact that he helped me out, so that's the biggest raya that he sold the property to me. Even though he can have a question on me, where's my star? If I claim I bought it, I should have had a star. But that's just a question. I lost my star. Usually a person only loses the star after 3 years, the Gemara says before. But in this case, that this person directly went and helped you to do the work in the field, he can't now come later and claim that the field is his. Amar Rav Zvid says, it depends though. If the ma'ar, the one that the original owner, and he's now challenging ownership, and he comes and says, yeah, I loaded the fruits, I was helping you. Well, why was I helping you? Because lepedis additive. You were here just as a sharecropper, that you would get some fruits as part of your pay. That's why I helped you, but not, I didn't sell it to you. Then he's going to be believed. But v'hani mili, when is this? If he claims that you're here only for the fruits, that he's going to be believed, that's b'toich shalish, within 3 years. Going to the point that we said before, that you could establish a chazaka right away because he helped you. But after 3 years, and this owner, this previous owner, the ma'arana, was quiet all this time, and so after 3 years, he's not going to after 3 years have the ability to come and claim that I was quiet all this time because I gave it to you just for paytas. If you just gave it to him for paytas, you can't be quiet all this time and then later come and claim that. That's the whole concept of chazaka. I mean, if a person can come later on and say, oh, you're just here for paytas, then you can't have a chazaka.
You can argue as a sharecropper for more than 3 or 4 years?
Right, cannot, correct. Now the Gemara is going to explain, what do you do in such a case? What's if you hired a person for 3 years and you don't want him to establish a chazaka in this time? So the Gemara explains right now. Oh, Amalei Rav Ashi Rav Kahana, so Rav Ashi says to Rav Kahana, so if this is someone that is here in the property just eating fruits that he has a share in, so what should the original owner do about this? So he says, so then, during the time of these 3 years, you have to make an announcement. You have to take out an ad in the paper or make an announcement, make it clear that he's only here as my worker, and he did not buy it from me. That's but to come after 3 years though, and now come with the story. So if you didn't make that point during the 3 years, it's too late. If you're not going to say that this is possible, and this is what you must do, hani mashkanta de surah. The halacha of the mashkanta de surah, this is when someone owes money and he doesn't have money to pay. So what he does is, he gives the lender a property of his, and you write in a document, so you write regarding this property, b'mishlam shnai ilain, when these years will end, tepik arada b'loy kesef. This field will return to the borrower, to the original owner, without any money. Right, so in other words, that's how the loan is paid up. And he uses it during that time period, and he gets the value of his loan, or whether he gets more, whether he gets less, that is going to be the payment of the loan. But it's only as a payment of the loan. There's no sailor. And this could be for 3 years, this could be for 5 years, this could be for 10 years. So now what happens? What's of this lender that has this property and he has this star, that he has rights to it because of a mashkin? So he's going to go and hide that star, and he's going to come and claim that I bought this field. So will he be believed to claim that he bought it? Could it be that Misakni Rabbanon, do Rabbanon allow for such a thing, that Rabbanon are instituting this concept of Mashkanta de Surah, that you can pay the loan in such a way, with such a kind of star, Midi, the Asi Bele de Pseda? This is something that can lead to a major loss, that the borrower will now lose his property altogether. It gives the lender the option, the ability to just hide that star and then just claim that he bought it. So what do we do in such a case? So Ella, the answer is, that in the time when you give this person this property as a mashkin, you have to, once in 3 years, make it clear that it's only a mashkin and I never sold it to you. So here as well, if you have someone that has the share in the paytas of your field for more than 3 years, so then you have to be meiche in that time period, and then he won't have the chazakah. But if not, after 3 years, he establishes a chazakah.
Mr.